Hello and welcome to another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson, the government and legal correspondent. Today, my guest is Mark Gherty, friend, neighbor, fellow Rotarian, and former attorney. And Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It was nice to see you.
Yes, good to see you again. And Mark has actually sat in my chair and been an interviewer, and now today he's the interviewee. So, Mark, what brings you to the studio today? I understand it's called the Trestle Bridge Project.
I am a member and a representative of the St. Croix Bike and Pedestrian Trail Coalition. We were founded in 2013 and came about as a result of the loop trail being proposed at that time and then eventually being built. We helped advise townships, et cetera, and been active in trail development. And so this project with this is the trestle that crosses Lake Malilu just to the east of the North Hudson Dam. And the hope is to develop a parcel of property, which is currently owned by the Union Pacific Railroad, into a regional park.
Okay.
So
our goal is regional park, and that's what we're going to be talking about.
Yep.
But I want to just help our viewers walk through this because we get folks who aren't as familiar with lifelong residents of Hudson like yourself.
Sure.
So first of all, we're looking at this picture. You mentioned the Loop Bridge, and I want to make sure that folks know the Loop Trail we're talking about. It's up at Stillwater and Holton.
St. Croix Crossing, St. Croix Crossing, the new Stillwater Bridge. And then there is a trail, it's a 4.75 mile loop that goes into Wisconsin and Minnesota and crosses both bridges. And so it is a loop, so if you start at the Holton School, you can go all the way around. And if you want the excitement, go the counterclockwise. You'll go down the hill first, but if you don't want the excitement, go the other direction.
So some of our viewers are familiar with the whole history. The Stillwater Bridge, the new Stillwater Bridge, something that they started talking about in the early 80s, and it took 30 plus years to come to fruition. And then when they built that, they saw all these possibilities, including now pedestrians can cross at Stillwater and Holton, and then of course bikes, and then the question was, where is it going to go to? So I understand that's kind of the impetus to this whole idea and why you're here today.
This idea, and there's been discussion about this for years, and that idea came up following a meeting at the St. Joe Fire Department with the director of the project when I asked the question, what are your plans to go to Hudson? And they didn't have any. She said, we're building this bridge and this loop. So it was proposed at that time to purchase or acquire this trestle, and that we would then carry it on and connect up with Lakefront Park trails, or the trail that is along the river that goes to St. Croix Street.
Right, because people can ride a bike across the I-94 bridge.
Right.
And come into Hudson that way.
But this would be the keystone, essentially, to connect the two bridges, is the plan. And there's a lot of work to be done. We got to go through North Hudson, and how we go through, is it 4th Street, is it Galahad? Probably 4th Street, and not building a new trail through North Hudson, but to connect up to the north side, and on it goes.
So let's orient the folks. This is a picture showing a body of water that is essentially part of Lake Malilu, and then this dam here is what empties into the St. Croix, correct?
In this picture, so the Lake Malilu Highway 35 bridge is in the upper center, almost to the right, and
okay, so this would be the bridge that people cross to go to North Hudson.
Yep.
Okay.
And the hope was back in 2015 is that if things got going right away, that we would have it done so that there would be an access and alternative transport to get to and from Hudson, which is another program probably be done as to that project. But it's so this would have, and the idea is it isn't just bikes, and it's bikes and pedestrians from the standpoint of alternative transportation.
Well, let's get a little bit into the history, because this is actually a very historic part of Hudson that nobody knows about.
Well, in the access, you come in, so from the Highway 35, you would come up North Street, which is across the street from Corky's Landing, the old Dairy Mart, And you come up and then go across the top, and then down, and this is Bridge Street, and right down in this part right here, that's a little dam. That's the little dam, and this is the natural flow of the Willow River. And so this was the confluence of the Willow. In fact, the picture upstairs, I noticed when I walked in, you'll see the Willow there, because that picture is very old, and it was the development of pioneer days. But it comes back that the Native Americans, this was their confluence. This was where...
This is real long history.
Yep.
We're going back hundreds of years, but
got
yes.
something here, I'm going to get that right. That the confluence was major for the Native Americans because it meant flowing water during the winter. So you wouldn't have, because the ice, as we know, on the river. The rivers were very small at that time because the St. Croix wasn't dammed up at Red Wing, and so it was, and this was not dammed. So it was the confluence, and that both the Anishinaabe or the Chippewa were here, and the Metawakan, which are the Dakota, were here also. And so it goes to there, and up in the top part left, you see the area. That's a historic preservation site, but is also an active business site. But that was the North Hudson Shops, and they were founded in 1873. Burned down in 1890, and they rebuilt it, and it operated up until 1957. And it's built.
And during that 60, 70 years, this is where immigrants, first-generation immigrants, would go and get jobs and work there.
The Italians came down from Cumberland, etc., and from Italy here. The Norwegians were here. The little area over where if the trail would go all the way through, the connection at St. Croix Street and First Street was known as Little Norway. So it was a matter of, a lot of immigrants.
Okay. And so this takes us up to the 1950s, that this was a heavily used area up through that time for the railroad.
And the railroad, and this railroad bridge was, that bridge right here was operated as an actual railroad up until 1978. And as a sidelight, the part of the winter of 1971-72, the summer of 72, 3, 4, and a little bit of 5, I worked in North Hudson loading trucks up in the shops at a business up there, and we would get 2 to 3 cars per week across that bridge. And it was also, as some of the folks my age would talk about, fishing from that bridge. It was some of the best crappie fishing that one could ever find. And that would be one of the other thoughts, that this would be developed with fishing piers, etc.
So shortly after 1978, that area is closed and that was not actively used.
Right. And the tracks were taken out. Now it's a matter of people drive through and park, and so.
So this is accessible, but to the public now?
Yeah, you can drive right in. And I wouldn't bring your best car because the road is a little rough, but you go slow, you can get all, it's perfectly fine. A lot of fishermen use the fish from the dam. You can't cross the dam now. That's blocked off, and you can't cross the bridge. That's closed also.
Okay, so what we have is you've given us some of the history of the area and the importance of this area. It looks a lot different than it did, say, 100 years ago when it was heavily used by the shops in North Hudson. But now with the dams and everything, those dams are here to stay. Yep. So now you've got, this is the map I wanted you to get to. Now show us like the various jurisdictions that own property.
So, and it's really important, the parcel that is for sale is in purple in the upper part, so above the active rail line.
So going all the way from North Hudson across the Trestle Bridge down into Hudson.
That's owned by the Union Pacific Railroad, which has the active rail line that goes diagonally through and off to Chicago.
One thing I didn't notice until you showed me this map, that this side actually says North Hudson. So North Hudson technically comes down into,
and this is
across the south side of Melville.
Yep, the confluence of the river. What you see, the crossings, where the railroad crossing is, where the little dam, that area right there, that's all man-made. So the natural flow of the river was up around that curve, up in through there.
Right.
And then it was a matter of the natural flow. They filled all that in between 1900 and 1913. And that was all railroad work. So that's when the Native Americans were on the east shore, and then the confluence came in. So that's why the line is there, because North Hudson, it runs down North Hudson.
Technically it's down here.
Yes, and the old Union Depot, which was there, was actually in North Hudson. And
now, while you have the picture here, you've got this Lakefront Park path. What's the significance of that?
That's the trail. So if, from the standpoint, the path comes in and then goes along this shore here, and that's where it stops, and that goes all the way down to Buckeye, and you then can connect up.
Which is where the marina is.
Yep, and you connect up with the sidewalk that takes you to the interstate bridge.
Okay, so folks can come over from Minnesota or vice versa, but still cross at I-94 and go up from Buckeye and then Lakefront Path to here.
Yep.
And now this project is all about connecting this to going into North Hudson.
So the idea is, back to the ownership. You'll see in North Hudson, the parcel on the starting at the top right next to the word Union.
Union right
Yep,
here.
and that there's private property to the north there, which is East Bank Condominium, and the association, and you can see their south line. That's then, right there. Then it becomes, this property is owned by the city, the village, and the county. There is a
Jointly or?
Jointly.
Okay.
So city, village, county. Then it's the cooperative agreement for the Willow River Power Dam, which was a hydroelectric dam at one time, a very historic with Mr. Burkhart, with his grist mill, etc. But then coming down on that, again, in the village of North Hudson, it's owned by city, village, county. That's that bank, and that's where there's a beach area. So if this were all taken over, you have a beautiful area for a park. And then on the other side is owned by St. Croix County, and then we get to the city of Hudson.
City of Hudson right over here.
Yep. And then the one that's important also is this East Bank.
Right here.
That all is owned by city, village, county. And so then on the other side here of the bridge, so if the trail would go underneath that bridge, not over it, it won't go over the railroad, but if we can get the right of way to go underneath it, you then run it into the hillside, and that's
this hillside.
that hillside, and then coming south, that's owned by the city of Hudson, and then we connect up. There's an area there in between that has to be figured out, and then you have XL Energy.
Area in between, you were talking about this.
Right there, and then you have XL Energy to connect up, and there's discussions. The door is open for discussions. You would run, we met with him yesterday, and then you run it down to connect up with the park trail that takes you to Willow River State Park. Or not Willow River, to Lakefront Park, excuse me.
Lakefront Park. So your vision is essentially to turn all of this that has this great history into a regional park and trail.
Yep.
And what we have is we have the various governmental units that already own the property. Ideally, if they all owned it, that would be half the battle, right?
Correct.
But they don't have that right now because you got Union Pacific owning property in the middle.
In the middle. And so for the 3 years, I've been working on this since January of 2019, and it was a matter of, as the question would come from every entity, all three entities, who's going to own it, who's going to maintain it. And so when I appeared a month ago before the county board, I pointed out to them that the tagline on their county, where it says under Wisconsin, it says innovation through cooperation.
Right.
So I said, gentlemen,
There
ladies,
you go.
let's be innovative and let's cooperate between county, village, and city. Because when they say, who's going to own it? Essentially, you all do. Because railroads, if they are abandoned under federal law, would then go to the adjoining property owner to be used. So that's where it's a matter of, we'll work this out. So that's where it comes down. What's happening now is we are bringing to the city first, to the park board, and then to the park board for the village, a resolution to form a cooperative team, essentially, to go to the county to do the same. And
Now,
so,
Do you have folks outside of your organization helping you out?
The organization, we have a very active group. We formed a friends group this summer, which is a committee of...
What is it? Friends of the Trestle Bridge Project?
Friends of the Trestle Bridge, and for the purpose specifically because we have been working with the National Park Service, which is the other important line here is the National Park Service, because of the National Scenic Riverway.
Right, that's all of this
That
here.
line, is actually on the west side or east side of the of the Union Pacific property.
Okay.
That right there that comes in as part of the Park Service. So we're in the recreational zone. We're south of the boom site. So we're the recreational zone on the river. And the idea being they have an organization which is the RTCA, which is a Rails Trails Conservancy Assistance Program. And they would come in, not to be consultants, but to be essentially mediators, to work with the groups. They did it in Stillwater with the beautiful setup they have over there, and also down at Prescott and Hastings, working with the two states, several counties, the villages, the townships, to put together a beautiful park down there. And so they would come in and assist us to get all of the people on the same page talking.
Again, innovation through cooperation, right?
That's what I'm working for.
Okay. And so somewhere along the line, I had to ask, I wrote down on my pad here, dollar signs, because sometimes it's always about money because governmental bodies have their budgets, they have revenue caps and so forth. So how does a project like this get funded?
Well, the first thing is it's going to be whether or not the parcel is purchased. And so the parcel, the Union Pacific parcel, if that's purchased, the assessment value is right now listed at $250,000. So they're saying we want $250,000. We went through a process, which is part of the federal law, where appraisals were done.
Okay.
And so the appraisal came back at approximately $120,000. And so, and again, this isn't commercially, it isn't commercially viable for the purpose of development.
Right.
And it's only less than 100 feet wide at where they own it.
Unless you're using it as a railroad, what are you going to use it for?
Correct.
You can't put houses on it or
nothing. It's
businesses.
landlocked also by these other parties. So with that, so there's if we have the cost there, the bridge I had a bridge company come out in 2019 with the understanding this isn't binding. Just give us a
ballpark,
something to talk about, and so we were in about $650,000 turnkey operation to make that bridge viable. And
by bridge viable, it's going under the current one.
Yep.
Okay.
So, well, the bridge viable meaning the trestle.
Oh,
so,
the trestle itself.
Yep. And
the longer part.
Yep. And then, so yes.
So right here.
Yep, that's the trestle. So there you've got $500,000 on that. Whatever it would take for trail purposes. You can do it in phases, and that would be the way to do it. That you do the phase one being this section of land, and then phase two is to look at, back to the wrong one. Phase two is to bring it down where you come in underneath and then put a bridge with structure. We have to, and this is going to be getting the approval of the right-of-way to access underneath the right-of-way. We'd never be able to go over the top. There's just, number one, to pay for it and to build a bridge over the top of a railroad, they don't like that. Mm-hmm. But to go underneath it, it's a whole different story.
Because this is the operating part of the railroad.
That's an active rail line.
The trestle is not active anymore, but this is.
Yep, yep.
Okay, and so it would be going underneath this. And right now, this is not really open to boat traffic?
A kayak could be the only thing.
Okay.
Kayak or a canoe. And so, and again, we all know from, you can see the marks on the cement that the water goes up. So it would have to be a bridge that is going to either be able to survive getting wet once in a while, or if it's a matter of the clearance, we got to make sure that we've got perfect clearance and working with the railroad to do that. Okay. So that's going to be a major step.
All right.
But that would then get us on to do the connection to bring us to the south, because this is where, if you look at going to the south, then it's around to the basin that clearing up there, that's where it connects. That's the northern state, or excuse me, the XL property where the poles are. That's the clearing, and then there's the trail off to the right that goes to Lakefront Park.
So we're talking about going this way.
Yep, right along the
Not
ridge.
going that way.
Oh no, you'd never go that way. It's cross underneath, and then go along the.
We're going underneath here where we showed before.
Yep.
It would be right here.
Yep, you're going right under there, and then.
Under there and around.
Yep, and it's amazing to go down, and you can look at it from St. Croix Street. It's no trespassing on the XL property and no trespassing on the Union Pacific property, but you can stand and look up and see the bridge, and it's just be a beautiful, beautiful asset.
Now, you were mentioning how this is 3 years into it from when you started, and the idea was 6 years before that. So
Yep.
We had said off camera that projects like this can take years, takes a lot of backing, different organizations, even mediation, as you pointed out.
Right.
But it would be a great study for a political science major at UW Falls to just tag along with you, just to see what you have to do. You have to start at the park board level, because you don't go straight to the city council or the county board with this. County board would be last on the whole list then?
I think so, to come back and to come to them. We did appear before the Community Development Committee and laid it all out, showed them the map, and when I laid it out and said, who's going to own it, who's going to maintain it, and I said, folks, you already own it, and there were some eyes that opened up, and
Right.
wow, look at that map.
So all but the NSP property, or what's now XL Energy, and the Union Pacific is already public owned.
Technically, yes. There's one little spot in between XL and the city garage area that doesn't have a notation as to who owns that.
Okay.
So,
But so a couple of things, moving parts at the same time. You got the funding mechanisms, but you also have to, because it's always the chicken and egg syndrome, is you don't get the funding until you get some approvals, and you can't get approvals unless you can prove the project's viable. So.
And so it's going to take, and if we look at in the picture, you have Lakefront Park, you have Prospect Park on the top of one hill, and Burkmose Park on the top of the other hill. This would be the equivalent, because I mean, what a gem. And so from a standpoint of, and again, to have, wrong thing, and I have to, this is the video that we did, just to give you a full sense of the whole project itself.
Is this done by a drone, by the way?
This was done by, through Mr. Walker here. And so this comes down, this is from Galahad, Wisconsin, brings us down.
Wisconsin Street and Galahad
Yes, Wisconsin Street in the village. This is East Bank on the right side, and the Malibu Apartments on the other.
This is just a dirt trail here that
This
was
is
the
the
abandoned
old railroad line.
Okay.
Yep. So we come right down the trestle.
And this is the one dam we saw?
Yep, this is the cooperative dam, and then this brings you into the property itself. This is the south parts of that property.
And this part is already owned by government entities.
On the right and the left, right down the middle is the Union Pacific. We
Okay.
come up to here, and there's where it would turn, and you would go under that bridge. And this comes out.
So
The
now
Union
the drone
Pacific
is kind
property.
of turning here
Yep.
to show how the,
Union Pacific property ends right here.
okay.
And then this would bring us, so we would go along that shore up on the top and bring you back to, he's down here. This is St. Croix Street where he has stopped. So
Okay.
it's, it's exciting stuff. So as a political science graduate of UW River Falls, I've been putting it to work.
There you go. So people are watching this, and some may be very interested. What can people do, or what contacts can they make? Because they may, if they're avid government followers, see that you're approaching the park board and so forth and making presentations. So where could our viewers help?
I think from the standpoint, if it's letters of support to the entities, all three entities, and that the park board, sure, but it's the city council and the board of supervisors for the county, and then with the village board. So from the standpoint of, by doing this as cooperative, it puts us into a position, I think, for grants. There has never been a better time in my lifetime as to with the American Recovery Act, with Build Back Better, with the infrastructure, and also things that are available. If we had everything together right now, there is a grant that if we could have everything filed by the 15th of November, there are state of Wisconsin grants. So hopefully next year they will be there.
And again, wanting to have that tied to money so that it doesn't fail for lack of funding.
And again, it's a matter of, I've had several individuals say, you know, we'll come forward, we'll help you in any way we can. And
now, so what sets this apart from, I've seen other projects, being an advocate of, you know, trails and everything, where those projects tend to fail if they have some heavy competition from corporate interests, developers, big money, that type of thing. Is there any real competition here like that?
I don't see it, and the only competition is something that we can build on, is take a look at what Stillwater has done with bicycling, with the Browns Creek Gateway Trail combination, with the loop trail connecting to that. Literally, you can get on your bicycle at the Holton School and ride trails all the way over to Lake Minnetonka.
Okay.
Through the state of Minnesota. Wisconsin hasn't picked that up in this part of the state. If we were down in the southern part of the state, and where everyone thinks Madison is central, there are trails running to your old homestead. I mean, right down the Badger Trail, and the beautiful trails, the Elroy Sparta Trail. You can go
Sugar River Trail,
all of that.
So, it's great for tourism, just not to mention just quality of life for the folks who are here, and safety ideas, because then you're not
Health.
Right, you're not on a shoulder, unmarked shoulder of some small township road.
A priest was killed over in Burnsville, or on County Road 42.
Busy highway, right?
Yep.
So. Well, very good. Now, what's your timetable? What do you think? I mean, if people want to hear about this, when do you think that?
Well, we have the park board on the 2nd, and Hudson Village is on the 4th. We will follow that up with the resolution, if they would pass the resolution on to the village and the city.
The village has a board, the city has a council.
Yep.
Okay.
And so let them take action on that. We would then, once that is done, take that to the county, because when we met with the county, they liked the idea, because we were asking them to make an offer to buy the bridge. And we have really stepped back to say, we're not ready to do that yet. We need to have everybody into this, especially with the ownership issues that we see, that, you know, you already own it, why don't you develop it and make it work?
All right. And this could be, like you said, another gem of a park. We have Berkmos and Prospect, Lakefront, and now this would be the fourth head on the Mount Rushmore of parks. Huh?
Well, and the fact that we're in the National Scenic Riverway, if it's a matter of, if there's federal grants, et cetera, that could be available for us to connect up the loop, because in the true loop would be to be able to ride from Hudson to Stillwater and back off-road. And you talk about the activities. The Browns Creek Gateway Trail are the two most used trails in the Twin Cities right now.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you, Mark. And if people want to learn more about this, is there anything like a Facebook page or a website? Or
there's Facebook and our website for the St. Croix Bike and Pedestrian Trail Coalition.
St. Croix Bike and Pedestrian
Trail Coalition.
Trail Coalition. Okay.
Yep. And I checked it myself before coming, and it works.
Excellent. Thank you.
There's connection there.
Well, thanks a lot. And it just shows in retirement you're quite active, huh?
Well, Keith Rodley said to me, find your passion. And I will tell you, my passion is Hudson and St. Croix County. And if I can make things work here in a positive way, this community blessed me for 38 years when I was practicing, and now's the time to give back.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Mark, for your efforts. Thanks for coming on the show and explaining this. And hope we have you on, say, within a year from now, and we're talking about the next phases of making this come to reality. That would be great.
Great.
Thanks for coming on. And thank you for watching another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson. Keep watching.